All right. And we are live. Buenas tardes. Welcome to the Queer Wednesday Wisdom. Me llamo Doctora Lulu. Yes, I'm a real doctor, so stop asking. People always say, are you a real doctor? What's your PhD on? This and that and the other. What? A black woman cannot be a real doctor? What? So, but whatever. My name is Dr. Lulu, aka the Momatrician. I am a pediatrician and a mom. So that's how the word momatrician came about. I'm also a life coach and I work with parents of LGBT plus kids primarily, but I also have expanded my horizon to include all parents because you know what? As a pediatrician, that's the work that I do, as well as having also coaching Black men. So that's the brand new group of people that I've added to my repertoire is Black men as an entity. And then queer persons. They all keep reaching out to me with their problems. I'm like, you know what? Bring it. I'm a general life coach and I can do it. However, this show is not about me and the work that I do per se. It's about my guests. I usually put a spotlight on one guest every week, usually a queer person, but not always a queer person. But the show itself is about creating safe spaces for queer people. So, usually a queer person or an ally. And today we have the spotlight on none other than Laila. I'm going to stop at just Laila and let her take the baton and tell us who she is, what she does for a living, why she's here, why is it important, and maybe even how we met. But before she goes down that rabbit hole, I would like to ask you to tell us something fun and something weird or something amazing or something different about you that most people don't know as an icebreaker. So, Layla, take it away. Tell us something fun or something weird or something different about you that most people do not know.
So my name is Laila, like the color lilac without the
Layla.
C.
Okay.
And most people don't actually realize that I speak 10 languages. And yeah. So me llamo Laila, buenas tardes, buenos dias. Spanish is one of the languages that I speak. So I was very fortunate to be brought up multilingual, and I traveled quite extensively around the world. And everywhere I lived, I tried to pick up the language. So I'm not fluent in all of them, and I can't read and write in all of them, but I've got a basic understanding. So there we go.
Lila, it's so funny you said that. Very few, I think you're one of the few people on this earth that speaks more languages than I do. Most times when I say I speak 9 languages, people are like, but you got me on one, you got me with one, which is really amazing. And just like you, I'm not 100% fluent in all of them. I can pretty much read and write in all the languages that I speak, but I'm not as fluent as I used to be because of lack of practice. But this is
You
so
don't use it,
amazing.
you lose it.
Yes, exactly. It's not like
Yeah,
riding a bike. This is
no.
speaking a language. Yes. So you know what? All the more
But you
reason
know,
why.
do you know what it is? It gets stuck in the side of your brain. Like I studied Spanish at school, but I never went to Spain. And then when I was in Guatemala and Latin America traveling,
Mhm.
um, it all came back. Like 20 years later, it was like it was stuck somewhere at the back of my brain, and it was like, hello, this is where it is. But also, like some of the languages, like I speak French, obviously, because I was born in France, Spanish and Italian, and they're very similar. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean? So it's a lot easier I think it's a lot easier to learn a fifth language when you already know four than to learn a second if you only know one.
I don't, you know what? I've never thought about that because the languages I speak, I do speak French, je parle français. I speak Spanish. Obviously, as I said, I live in North Mexico here in San Antonio, Texas. And I realized that Portuguese is almost French. I mean, it's almost Spanish. So I can actually read Portuguese and understand it. But then when they're speaking it, I have to like, I'm slower to understand it. But this is so amazing. You never know what connects people, but this is so amazing. Before I go any further, I want to give a shout out to the LinkedIn user who is saying hi, Laila, and hi, Dr. Lulu. And then, of course, Tori Jewel, who's also joining us from Minnesota. Sometimes LinkedIn puts the people's names, sometimes it doesn't put their name. So if you're joining us, do what Tori did and tell us where you're joining us from. And then feel free to ask any questions you have of my guest today. We are talking about creating safe spaces for queer people or queer persons. So let your questions kind of be in that department. Don't ask us a random question about the sale of shoes in Saudi Arabia. I mean, that's not gonna help. But I'm so excited to finally. Oh, it's Peter. Ah, nice, nice. Welcome, Peter. So it's finally, it's just amazing that Laila and I met. Was it 2020?
Probably, yeah. It was 2020. It was
It
in
was 2020
Clubhouse.
during the lockdown.
Yes.
And we met on none other than Clubhouse. And then
So
we
this is the
finally
first time we actually see each
seeing each
other
other.
because
Yes.
I've only had the audio.
And so we have someone else joining us from Massachusetts on TikTok. So just so you know, we're live on TikTok, we're live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube, and we're live on LinkedIn. The
Wow.
power of technology. And Peter is joining us from the UK. So amazing. From Reading, UK.
Reading.
So Reading. So we have a beautiful international space here. We have Massachusetts in the house. We've got Nigeria by way of San Antonio. We've got Laila somewhere in the UK. So good. And we've got Jenny joining us. I think Jenny is in, Jenny, are you in New Jersey or I forget? But so good to see so many people. Someone else is joining us from New Orleans. So this is so amazing that we have so many people. So I'm just going to reintroduce myself. My name is Dr. Lulu. And yes, I'm a real doctor. I happen to also be a mom of a transgender young adult. I'm a speaker, author, and all of these things. But I like to tell people that those are only roles that I play. I really, truly am still looking for who I am. And I'm beginning to find out that one thing for sure is I'm a truth teller. I will tell it like it is, and I take no prisoners. But again, this show is not about me. This show is about my guest. So, Laila, tell us, where are you from and why is this show important? Why is it important to create safe spaces for people at the workplace, which is what we're talking about today?
Where am I from? I feel like I'm a citizen of the world. I mean, if you think about human beings, we're all on a continuum. From
Yes.
our skin color, from the whitest to the darkest, for our body sizes, heights, the same about sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression. Like it's a spectrum, you know. And when I think about body size, mine is a lot bigger since the pandemic.
Welcome, Laila.
Yes.
Come on through. Come on through.
Yes.
Take several seats. I am still struggling with my COVID-19, is what I call it. I gained 20 pounds. And
Yeah,
I'm
it's
still holding
fine.
on to them.
Let's not do body shaming on this show.
Not at all. No,
All
I'm just
bodies are
saying
beautiful and it's cultural.
everybody's body is perfect. But I'm just saying, I'm affirming you that after the lockdown, I still have mine. And you know what? I'm good. So yes.
The point that I was trying to make is like we're all on a continuum within the human world, but also within our own lifetime. Our body change, our thoughts change. It's a continuously evolving. So for me, creating safe spaces is or safer spaces. I don't think a space can be completely and utterly safe, but safer spaces is about enabling people to be their authentic selves. And when you don't have to edit, when you don't have to filter yourself, when you don't have to look over your shoulder, when you don't have to live in this constant paranoia, then you can just focus on what it is that you need to do. I'll give you an example. I used to work for a further education college, and it was my very first management job. And I didn't want to be seen as Laila the lesbian. I wanted to be seen as Laila the manager. So Monday morning, I would get into work, and people will talk. That was pre-pandemic, um, and it was like, "Oh, how was your weekend?" I was like, "It's fine. How was yours?" And I didn't say my girlfriend and I went to the cinema. Like I told very little about myself, and what it did is it developed a relationship of mistrust because they didn't know anything about me, and I was very good at deflecting and not answering question. And a lot of the bonding that happens at work is around this water cooler moments, chit chats, knowing a little bit about someone so that you can build that connection. Oh, you've got tiggs, oh, so have I. Oh, you've got a dog, so have I. Oh, you like that
Or you
TV
speak
program.
or you speak 10 languages, so do I. It's by telling the stories, by share. I always say we are connected by our storylines. There's a commercial in the US that says we're connected by our power lines, and I say we're connected by our storylines. When you tell your story and I tell my story, we usually find something, some kind of common ground, and then we build upon it. So I totally agree with that. I totally
Yeah,
agree.
and Dr. Lulu, the it's the affinity bias. It's like we warm up to someone because we think we have something in
Common.
common. Um, so by fostering an environment where people can be their authentic selves, then they perform better. Like if you really think about it, it's beneficial to the individual, but it's also beneficial to the organization. And in places where I was my full authentic selves, and I say selves because there's so many different facets of me, I thrived. I was so creative. I performed better, rather than having to say, think, am I going to be safe? Is anybody going to make a comment? Because what people need to realize is people who've got intersectional identities, like I'm a woman of color, I'm a lesbian. So I have experienced homophobia, I have experienced sexism, misogyny, racism, ableism, ageism.
Ageism.
Yes, I'm 55. I've always been told that I look younger. I was ID'd up until I was 33. And, ageism is people who discriminate against young people, old people.
Old
So
people.
there's a range of different discrimination that I have experienced, and that's affected my ability to trust myself.
Mm.
The imposter
Mm.
syndrome. The
Yes.
imposter syndrome, it means that even though I am Stonewall Lesbian Role Model of the Year and I'm on the Pride Power list and I've been nominated for so many awards, and I still find it hard to believe in my own accomplishment. I mean, I'm working really hard on myself to try to quieten that negative voice in my head that's saying, do they really like my workshop? Or did I do okay? Or, that kind of sort of like self
Second
doubt.
guessing. Yes. Second guessing.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. You can relate, can't you?
Oh, definitely. So we are at 1:15-ish. The show is called Queer Wednesday Wisdom. Queer spelled with a W, Wednesday with a Z, and wisdom with a Z on purpose so you can find it. My name is Dr. Lulu, and usually the show is divided into 4 quarters. And so we're at the bottom of the first quarter. My guest's name is Laila. She's coming from across the pond in the UK. I try to tell people that I have interviewed people from the Philippines, from India, from Africa, from the UK, from across the pond, because we literally are from Canada, wherever you can, Oklahoma, like Jenny. We are all the same. I'm yet to find a guest who came to my show and was blue in the face, or I don't know, like those avatar people, or had a different color blood, or anything different on the inside. And so what Lila just mentioned about affinity bias, I've never even thought about that, but that's so true. We find things that connect us, but ideally we should not have to find something before we connect, is what I'm hearing. And as queer persons, it's like the default is we're othered. We have a lot in common, Laila. I'm a woman like you. I'm a foreigner. I have an accent, which I love. I speak multiple languages. I'm also queer. So we have all these things in common. But even the things we don't have in common, we should also be able to celebrate. So as we go to our first break, so we can get our water and relax a little bit, I need y'all to type your questions in the comment section wherever you're joining us from today. What questions do you have for my guest? Any question at all. And if she can't answer, she'll just say, I can't answer. But I don't want you to say, well, I don't want to ask this question, because maybe ask the question anyway, because you never ever know. So, Laila, as we get back to the show, to the second quarter of the show, what has been your experience? Because you told me off camera that you work for yourself. What has been your experience working for yourself as maybe a consultant or something with the UK laws and all the anti-LGBT laws? And I know you're not, I don't know if you are, but in Texas here, as a parent, I can get arrested just because I affirm my child. Do you have laws like that in the UK as well? And if so, what are your thoughts about them?
That's a lot of questions.
I know.
Yeah, that's a lot of questions, and my ADHD brain is like,
Welcome.
so can you just give me one question at a time, please?
Yes, my first question is, what are your, do y'all, well, first of all, are you a parent of a human child? And if so, do you have laws in the UK where parents can be arrested and serve up to 12 months in jail? I think 12 years is the maximum in Michigan,
No,
12 months in
we
Texas.
so in terms of rights in the United Kingdom, we have the Equality Act 2010, which is a piece of legislation that protects 9 protected characteristics against discrimination in the workplace and beyond. And I've just seen a question from Peter say, what was the impetus to start the Pride in Education conference, and how would you like to see it progress in the future? I'll get back to you, Peter. Thank you so much. And the problem that we're having in the UK is the anti-trans movement is being spearheaded by the British government itself. So Scotland has just, the Scottish Parliament has just voted to allow self-identification, and the British government is invoking Article 35 and trying to block the Scottish Parliament. The conversion therapy is still not illegal in the UK, or conversion practices, whereas it's illegal in other countries in the European Union. Trans people do not have access to healthcare in the United Kingdom when it relates to their gender affirming process. So the waiting list on the National Health Service can be up to 10 years for just being seen. And there are, I think, only 3 gender identity clinics in the UK. I'm not a trans and non-binary expert, so I think, and I always say nothing about us without us, so it's much better to interview a trans person to talk about these issues, and I'm not a parent of a trans child, but no one is free until we are all free. The problem is, like, people are focusing on the wrong thing, and there is a lot of misinformation. Yes. So we're not trying to converse anyone. There is space for everybody. Giving trans people's rights doesn't remove rights from cis people. And there's no danger to the cis community for someone being trans. Like, the whole bathroom thing is completely ridiculous. I mean, if you know what sex I am when I'm in the bathroom, you're doing something wrong, because I go into the toilet to do 2 things, number 1 and number 2, and that's it.
And that's it.
You know, So I really don't understand the whole thing. And then my experience of friends who have trans children. A friend of mine has a trans son,
Mm-hmm.
and before he got seen and affirmed, he
Mm-hmm.
tried to take his life several times. But as soon as he was able to affirm himself, he's now at university, he's thriving. I've seen the positive impact of
Yes.
enabling people to be their authentic selves. And
Yes.
at the beginning, I was talking about at work being able to be myself, I perform better. Well, it's the
Yes.
same. I mean, if you look at, there's an organization called justlikeus.org.uk who interviewed 4,000 kids during the pandemic. The report is called Growing Up LGBT, and they identified that 67% of the white LGBTQ plus kids have thought about ending their lives, and 89% of the black LGBT kids have thought about ending their lives. Now, a child for me goes to school because they want to learn, they want to get educated, not because they want to end their lives. It's just, so yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Yes. I mean, I appreciate the numbers because numbers do not lie. One of the things I say in the U.S., I don't know, I don't know. Weirdly, we have lower numbers than the UK. In the US, we have 42 to 47% of LGBT plus, actually of gender non-conforming children have seriously considered suicide in the past 12 months, according
That
to
was specifically relating to the pandemic, these statistics. So that
the
was a
US.
piece of
Okay.
research that was
Yeah.
done during lockdown.
Okay.
But in the US, 40% of the kids who are homeless are queer. And in the UK, it's 25% of
Yeah.
the kids who are homeless who identify as
Hmm.
LGBTQ plus.
Yeah.
Just
So
to finish.
the black children, I mean, indigenous children, children of color, always have higher numbers. One of the things I wanted to add to your own numbers is that 89% might sound like is really high, but the truth is that number is not fully representative because there will be some people who did not vote for fear of repercussions. At least in the United States, all of the numbers that they give us, we have to always presume that there will be some people who choose not to respond because of whatever that they are afraid of. So every time we get numbers, I always take them with a pinch of salt because I know that there are more people. As a bisexual woman, I don't vote most of the time. Well, before I started doing this work for my child, really, I'm doing this work because of my child. I would have never voted. I would 100% identify as heterosexual because I was then married to my ex-husband, and it was just easier to just go with the flow. But now that my child, when my child first said they were non-binary, and then now transgender, it now occurred to me, wait, I have not been voting truthfully. Just like in America during the past elections, which was not about LGBT, a lot of people did not vote. I'm not going to vote because my vote doesn't count. But now we know these legislations, that's why we need to vote. Because if you can vote people, the right people to take the right decisions, we won't have all these just crazy laws across the board, just crazy, crazy laws. But thank you for bringing those numbers to the forefront. If you'd like to answer the question that is the Peter's question that is on the banner, then we can go ahead and respond to that now before we take our second break.
I've just put the link in the comments to the Just Like Us report that I was mentioning in case
Okay.
people are interested in looking at the
Mhm.
data.
I'm
So
gonna.
Pride in Education was started at the beginning of the pandemic because the UK government had removed £4 million from the education budget, um, which was dedicated to anti-homophobic bullying and HBT, anti-homophobic, anti-biphobic, anti-transphobic bullying in schools. And we went on lockdown, and there was nothing that was being done to support educators and young people. So I started my very first Pride in Education in June 2020. Um, and it's brought together intersectional. And I have the L, the G, the B, the T, the I, the Q, the A. We really try to showcase seldom heard voices, minoritized and marginalized voices. Where I'd like to see it progress in the future, I'd like to bring more people together who are supporting people within the education sector. So I have teamed up with Schools Out UK, which runs LGBT History Month in February, and also the Queer Student Award, and I'm meeting up with the National Student Pride. So it's celebrating and bringing together, because we are stronger together. I
Yes.
remember there was a union person who said to me, if you take a book and you have one page, you can tear it very easily. But if you try to tear the whole book, it's virtually impossible. So we're stronger together. I do believe that. The other thing that I want to say, and I don't know whether people are aware, is we're not trying to convert anyone. We're just trying to be accepted for who we are. So I always say to people, what's the difference between accept and agree? You don't have to agree that being a lesbian is a good thing, or but you have to accept we have always been here. And I am normal. I'm just not the norm. And to quote my friend Sue Saunders, I would like for us to be usualized,
I love
so
that.
that not normalized, because I am normal, I'm just not the norm, but usualized, so that it becomes more common for us to be seen in films, in and not just the queer people. I'm talking about disability, people of color, people from diverse cultural and linguistic backgrounds. That's what needs to be done.
Yeah,
Tori is commenting on YouTube. Did you see?
we definitely need to. I am definitely of the mindset that we need to challenge people. In America, they call it white fragility, or I like to call it Karenization, where white women just call the police and their nickname is Karen here, and just call the police for just random things that don't even make any sense. I just call it Karenization of white women. We have to be continue to be fearless and be, should I say, empowered to speak up, because many people have come before us, and it's because they spoke up that we are able to be here today. So I totally appreciate the conference. I think I was a speaker at the conference. Was it like last year or 2 years ago? Was that the same conference that Peter is asking about, the one that you invited me to?
No, I think
From
it was on Clubhouse
it was
where
a
we
clubhouse.
spoke.
Yes,
Yeah, I was talking about the conference. No, the conference is on Zoom. And the
yes.
next one is on the 20th of May. So, Peter, put that in your diary, and it'll be advertised on my social media, LinkedIn, Insta, everywhere. Or
Let me
follow
know if
Pride
you
in
need.
Education.
Yeah, let me know if you need a speaker from this end. I'm happy to help out. We have a lot of comments. Tori says they were treated badly at their post after they had started carrying a pan key ring. It was never said or asked, but things became unsafe for them there. This has scared them to start a new post. I want you to notice that the entire time I read it in third person, I use they, them pronouns. This is more to educate people out there. When you do not know someone's pronoun, do not assume that by looking at the person, you can guess their pronouns. So the safest pronoun to go with is they, them, if you don't know, or you can just use the person's name. I want you to notice how I was able to safely utilize they, them pronouns to reread the comment and not make them feel misgendered. Until you know somebody's pronoun, do not use he, she, because you're seeing that they maybe fit a particular gender binary in your mind. They, them is safest. If you see this thing lying in the street right now, you're going to say, oh my goodness, somebody lost their flask. You're not going to say somebody lost her flask or his flask, because you don't know who the person is. So likewise, you should use they them until you're sure. For those of you out there who do not believe that you can use they them is singular, I just did that very safely. Now the next thing to do is to introduce yourself and say, my name is Dr. Luna. My pronouns are she, her, even though mine are visible. And then I can now ask Tori Jewel what their pronouns are, and then we can use their pronouns. I wanted to just do a little deflection there to teach people that this is all creating safe spaces, is all part of, or safer spaces, like my guest said. So the time is 1:30 p.m. Central. We're at the bottom of the hour, so we're at the halfway mark. The show is called Qweer Wednesday Wisdom. My beautiful, beautiful guest is Laila, and she is coming all the way from across the pond. It's 7:30 p.m. over there. So y'all just give her some flowers today for staying up to do this. She did not have to, but she came because she has a spirit to teach. So we do not want any negative energy. Please come with positive energies and ask your questions of Laila. So as we go into the third phase of the show, someone is saying thank you to Laila for everything that they do, saying that the Pride in Education conference was a revelation to them. Again, someone and them. So you can use singular pronouns for individual people, for them and for individual people. So Laila, as we come back to the second half of the show, I want to just highlight a few things that you said today that really, for me, that was a phrase you used that really jumped out to me. And you said it was, I wrote it down. Hold on.
Visualize.
Well, the usualize was the second one. I'm coming to that, but the first one
The
was
difference between accept and
affirmation.
agree.
No, it was affirmation bias. I love that term because that's a term that I've not heard being used before. I love that. And what affirmation bias is, can you tell us what it is again? What
No,
is,
I talked about affinity bias.
was the affinity? Oh, I think I wrote affinity actually. I couldn't read my
Yeah,
handwriting.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
affinity bias. I'm sorry. So affinity
Affinity
bias.
bias is when you warm to someone because of something that you've got in common, and how it clouds your judgment and stops you from seeing who the real person is.
Yeah.
So for me, when I was a manager, if someone who was being interviewed came out in their interview and they were like, "I'm gay," I would go, "Oh my God, they're gay. Okay, I want them on the team." And they could have been like the worst person to work for me, but I didn't see it because it colors the way we view people. Um, I deliver a lot of workshop. I cover unconscious bias in my workshops. I do LGBTIQA plus allyship in the workplace, diversifying recruitment. I
Yes.
work for lemeducation.com, lemeducation.com. So if you're interested in my services, you can have a look at my website and you can contact me. I've worked for Disney, Stella McCartney, the British Transport Police. I'm doing some work with them. We did gender equity, race and ethnicity. I'm developing an assertiveness training session for frontline workers. Everything that I do is bespoke to the client. So this morning I did a training session on how to have advertisement, or how do you say in American, advertisement?
Advertisement, I know. I'm originally
Advertisement.
Nigerian, so I in Nigeria we say advertisement, but yeah, here is advertisement, but that's
So
the
how to
actual
have
potato.
adverts which are more culturally representative,
Yes,
more diverse, and how what does intersectional representation mean? And
mean,
we had a look at specific um, bad adverts and good adverts. I mean, what we also need to remember, and I think this is a really important point to make, is we're all on a learning journey. Language is evolving, and as a linguist, Dr. Lulu, you will know that we don't speak the same English that was spoken 300 years ago or even last century. Language is constantly evolving. And when
changing.
people say,
Yes,
so to go back to the point of the pronoun, um, well, yes, and we have more terms to be more precise about our identities. If you look at diets, 30 years ago, you were either vegetarian or not. And now You can be vegan, pescatarian, flexitarian. Like, we've got more words to describe our
Yes.
dietary needs, but we also have more words to describe our gender identities, our
Yes.
gender expression, our sexual orientation, our romantic attraction, etc., so forth and so on. So for me, it's a plus, and it's not
Yes.
even confusing. And the other point that you made, which I think is really important, is not to assume. So when we don't know, just ask.
Just ask, honey. Just ask. I love it. I love it. This the second new word you used today was usualization, or use you to usualize. I thought that was just amazing. I'm taking a lot of notes here. I love. So just to go back, and usually what I do is at night when I go live on TikTok, I just kind of review everything that we talked about. So another group of human beings can also learn about what we talked about today to get that knowledge going. And usually when I do that, believe it or not, 9 times out of 10, I get banned by TikTok. I mean, like every time I go live to educate, I get banned because there's a homophobic algorithm. So, and I get banned for about a week. Then they give me back then I go back again, and we will not be silenced. We will not. You can't silence all of us. Eventually, we're going to get our words out there. So, thank you so much, Laila, for coming on today. Usualization is a new word that I've not.
So
That's
the term was invented by Professor Sue Saunders, who's
mm-hmm.
the person who started LGBT History Month in the UK, co-started with the late Paul Patrick in 2004. Um, Actually, Rodney Wilson started LGBT History Month in 1994, I think, in America. Started
Mm,
earlier. But anyway, and she used the term usualize, so you need to give credit where credit is due,
sure.
because normalized, we are normal, we're just not the norm.
Hmm. I love that. Yes. So yeah, I heard it first from you, and I'll never forget that I heard it from you. And yeah, definitely Sue Sanders, great, awesome, fantastic. But it's always gonna. I'm always gonna think Lila when I think visualize. So this is great, and I thank you for doing the right thing and giving them props. One of the things you mentioned was how when people feel like they're welcome at the workplace, when they're affirmed at the workplace, they actually perform better. I like to bring that to the forefront all the time because companies and organizations do not realize that ultimately it affects your bottom line. It affects the money that comes into your business. It affects the turnover rate. It affects employee participation. So why would you not want to create this? And we seem to be talking about queer people today, but it might be racism the next day, maybe Black Africans the next time, or I don't know, Ukrainians. We have to realize that you will never go wrong when you create safe spaces. And that's why we should not stop at DEI, because the B is the bottom, that's the result of all your DEI activities. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that not only should organizations strive to provide safer spaces, psychological safety, an environment and a culture where people feel like they belong, but they should also diversify the recruitments and try to have as many diverse voices and people from diverse cultural background, linguistic background, various disabilities, abilities, differently abled, whichever one you like. The more different you bring people to the table, the more, first of all, you're going to reach that market, because we all know that if you've got someone from a particular background, it will attract people similar to that background.
Yes,
So
yes,
if you're trying to open up a market, secondly, it will make your messaging a lot more accurate, and it will remove stereotyping and tokenism. Nothing
yes,
about us without us. So if you want to create a diverse campaign, make sure you have diverse people at the table. Otherwise, it's going to backfire, and you actually can have a damaging effect on the organization reputation, but it can also lose money, at the end of
yes.
the day.
at the end of the day. And the thing I know everybody understands is money. Everybody understands that. Maybe not everybody, but all adults who work, they understand that when something affects your bottom line, we've got a problem. And so, yes, I love all the things that you're talking about today. We have a question from Tori. Tori states that their trans kids have been treated worse by educators and staff at the school than they were by most of their peers, which is completely true. Because as you and I know, Gen Zers, Gen X's, millennials, Gen Alphas, maybe not Gen X's, but millennials, Gen Zers, Gen Alphas, the younger age groups, those are more receptive and more affirming. So I want to just ask you the question because you're the guest. So they want to know, what are your thoughts on educators dead naming and misusing pronouns? I don't know if it was for you or for me. I do have a class coming up on pronouns, so I'll take the question after you field it for me, Laila.
So, oh, my face has gone bigger all of a sudden.
Yeah, I
Ha,
was trying that out just to see.
so first of all, I disagree with educators. It's we wouldn't accept racism, you know. We wouldn't accept kids being called the N-word or kids being called other names. So why is it acceptable for trans and non-binary kids? For me, there's no difference. Discrimination is discrimination. So I do advocate, I do encourage people to use the correct name, the correct pronoun, the correct gender, because it will support the well-being and mental health of that young person. You know, it's really, really important. And if they don't do it, they need to understand the detrimental impact that it will have on that young person.
That is so true. And, I don't
I
know
mean,
if
as a
you,
nutrition, you better than anybody else can tell
yes,
about the detrimental impact of.
yes. I was going to actually mention Florida. I think Florida has gone just off the chain with their anti-trans laws now. And I think it was maybe Michigan or Utah. They now want children's genitals to be inspected before they play sports. I mean, there's some things coming up that I'm just like, oh my goodness. Like,
Do you know this? There
whose
is
idea is
so
who is
so this
bringing
idea
this?
this idea came from a forensic doctor called Ambroise Tardieu. In 1857, he developed a really flawed methodology which stated that he could examine post-mortem um, people's men who have sex with men, their anus, their bottom, their thighs, etc., all the lower part, and identify whether these people were homosexuals. Now, first of all, this methodology is really, really flawed. Um, because if you had diarrhea before you died, you probably had the same symptoms. So that's absolutely
Exactly. Oh
ridiculous.
my
Number
goodness.
one. And number two, not all homosexuals have anal sex. So there we
Okay.
go. Yeah, let's call a spade a spade.
Spade,
So
yes.
so 1857 is when that floor methodology. Now, despite it being banned by the World Health Organization, it's still being used. Forced anal examination is still being used in countries where we are being criminalized and persecuted. And people need to understand that 69 countries around the world criminalize homosexuality,
Yes.
and that 11 countries it's punishable by death.
My death, yes.
So the
Yes.
first thing that I do before I go on holiday is actually Google
Check.
LGBT rights, to make sure that I'm not going to be persecuted, or treated just because of who I am. But to go back to your point, examining children, first of all, for me, it's sexual assault.
Hello.
That's
Hello.
like without consent. Are the parents present? I mean, who? It's worse than what was happening in the 19th century.
Thank you. This is America of today. And
I can't believe
this is
it.
this I know, it's unbelievable. Literally unbelievable. Yesterday, I want to say the state of Iowa passed a law that if you're going to use your pronouns, you have to include your DNA. I mean, I'm just like, what is going on? Like, these are the who's thinking these things up? Like, how in 2023 is this a conversation at the political level?
The other thing
Why?
that
Go ahead.
The other thing that also people rarely mention is the plight of people with intersex variations or intersex people. So, if people are not familiar with intersex people or people with intersex variations, it's someone who was born with physiological characteristics which could be attributed to both male and female, and that's how you were born. And it's not even recognized in the UK, it's recognized in Germany, where people can have the MX marker. And that's going back to what I was saying at the beginning of your show, Dr. Lulu, is that we're all on a continuum. So sex,
Yes.
gender identity, sexual orientation, it's like, and there's space for everyone to be themselves.
Yes. I tell you, it's I try every day, every week when I do this show, I try to come in with this like positive energy and just try to hold on to the energy through the show, but I almost always just end up getting bombarded with the reality for children and me and other people out there. Tori says that they were told that they may play sports. I'm assuming these are their kids, but would have to be in the teams designated for their gender assigned at birth. And yes, it requires a physical exam. So Tori, can you tell us? Can you remind us?
How old are the kids?
And
Is my question.
what state are you joining us from? Also, Tori, if you could.
Yeah. And
This
the
is
physical exam, is
heartbreaking.
there a parent present?
It's
Like,
heartbreaking.
I'm
It's almost the
shocked.
same thing. Yeah, be shocked, be shocked, be shocked, because it's almost the same thing with the conversion therapy. Some of them
Sorry,
you don't even
it's
want to.
not therapy.
No, no,
There's
no, no.
nothing.
I know. No,
It's called
I'm
conversion
saying
therapy. We need to be mindful of our language, Dr. Lulu.
we use
There's
it.
nothing.
We
Yeah,
use conversion therapy. America uses
UK
family.
as well, but I'm challenging this.
I know, and I
There's
know,
nothing
and
therapeutic about conversion.
I know that. And what I was going to say is, America still uses Fahrenheit and pounds for their weights. America is not a country that wants to monitor what the language. They're not known to use superior vocabulary for vocabulary. To them, yes, there's a new term for it, but what I was trying to say is that is part of the process. They're supposed to force you to have sex with these people who believe that by so doing, they're converting you. So I was just trying to mention that same thing with these people that want to do physical exam, that by putting that out there, you change your mind, or you don't want to play sports. One of the things I talk about is a child who wants to play sports is just going to say, you know what, I don't want to do it anymore. But that's wrong, because only up to, I think they say 1% of sports people are like transgender or something like that, because they're just losing interest. And it's so wrong. It's nobody's listening to the suicide numbers that we're talking about. Nobody's listening to the mental health. Nobody's listening to that. They're just insisting that we're trying to groom children. The same people that are talking about grooming children are the same people that when you go in, you see that they're actually the ones who are committing terrible acts against children. Like here now in Texas, as of last week, they introduced a drag levy. So if you are a small business and you're going to have a drag show, you're now going to be taxed separately for that. I mean, it's just, this was as of last week that they passed this. So it's like every single day there's something else. As Texas is a state where we had no power last year during the winter. You would think they will worry about the grid. They worry about houseless youth. You think they will worry about that. No, they're more worried about things that don't even make any sense. But as we get to the last quarter, I want to say a big, huge, ginormous Texas size thank you to Laila today. I mean, this has been amazing. The conversation has been amazing. And also to Tori, who stayed till the end. Tori says that they're in Minnesota and the kids are 11 and 13. Just imagine the psychological damage this kind of thing can do to somebody. I can't even like, I don't know. Well, Laila, as we round up the show, I would like you to tell us again where you work, what you do for a living, how people can find you and follow you. And if you want to type it, I'll put it in the banner so people can
Thank you.
follow you.
I just wanted to say to Tori that it breaks my heart to know that their kids who are 11 and 13 are going through physical examination. And I don't know, because I'm not aware of how the school system works in the States, but I know that I would not like to have a child of mine being subjected to physical assault, because it's not a physical examination, it's an assault, wanting to check your genitals to see whether you are the same as the sex you were assigned at birth is an invasion of your privacy and should not be tolerated. So I don't know whether you can change school, homeschool them, or do something, but the impact on their mental health. And I don't know enough about the legislation in where you are in Minnesota to be able to advise, but all I can offer is my deepest sympathy for what you're going through, because as a mum or as a parent or as a carer or as a responsible adult,
Yes.
what you want is for the person in your care to be able to develop and thrive into becoming a well-rounded
Good.
individual. So
Yes.
I really, really feel for you, and I want to thank you for sharing your
Yes.
story.
Yes. And we have on TikTok, we have Kim Dory, who is actually who I know as a client, who happens to be a mom of trans children, and she lives in Michigan, which is the state where you will get up to 12 years of prison as a parent who supports your child.
Yeah, I mean,
What?
it's shocking, but we also need to be looking at the milestones that have been gained in other parts of the USA, and we have to be very mindful of making generalization to saying all of America is like this or all of the UK is like that, just to pick
Mhm.
up on something that you are saying, because we're not all the same, and that's what we're trying to advocate here. And
Yeah.
it's about celebrating and understanding the unique difference that every single one of us brings. Like, you and me are the same, we both have blood in our veins, but we're so completely different, and that's to be celebrated, I
Yes.
feel. Dr. Lulu, I
I'm
want to
really.
thank you for the opportunity to
Oh,
join your show.
I
So I
wanted
work
to
for I
hear
work for
your.
myself at
Yeah.
lemeducation.com. I also founded Proud London Council's Educating Out Racism UK Queer Arabs. So I work supporting my community in addition. So LEM Education is my income generating activity, if you want, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
also really passionate about social justice, and I run a few groups and initiatives that are really, really important to me. And I think that's part of my imposter syndrome, which I was mentioning earlier,
Yeah.
where you feel like you always have to do more, that
Yes.
it's never enough, like
Yeah.
you have to work harder to kind of sort of like prove yourself. So I'm slowly trying to reduce the amount of things that I'm doing, because we need to look after ourselves as the oxygen mask in the airplane. You need
Yes.
to make sure that you've got the oxygen before you can give it to other people.
Your child. Yes.
And then just to pick up on something that you were saying about conversion therapy. So I know that in the UK they call it conversion therapy, in America they call it conversion therapy, but there's nothing therapeutic about this type of conversion. It's torture. So
Yes.
conversion practices, and words have power, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's Maya Angelou who said people will never forget. No, people will forget what you said, they
Good,
will
but they won't
forget what you did, but they won't forget how you made them
make them feel.
feel.
Mm-hmm.
and talking about it as in conversion therapy, even though that is the consensus, actually implies that there's something therapeutic about it. So I when I talk about conversion practices, I talk about torture, about conversion practices, not therapy, because
Yeah.
there's nothing therapeutic about it. In
Yeah.
the same way that when we talk about immigration and people are seeking asylum, they're not asylum
Asylums.
seekers.
Yes.
They are seeking refuge, they are
Yeah.
seeking protection. So I think we need, it's not slavery, it's enslavement.
Meant.
Like,
Yes.
we need to start challenging language whenever we hear it, so that slowly it seeps in until people actually understand why it is being challenged, the
Mm-hmm.
impact that it has, and
Mm-hmm.
that people understand how it's affected these minoritized and
Mm-hmm.
marginalized communities. I'm not an ethnic minority, I am a minoritized um, uh, identity, and I'm part of the global majority.
And you have Kim here. Kim says, yes, join our imposter syndrome club. So, so Kim is inviting you to join. And then Kim also says, yep, it's torture, period. And that is so true. And it is just, it's heartbreaking. Just, but you're right. This past election, we had, I think they had for the first time, maybe not the first time, I don't know, but for the first time in my memory, more LGBT candidates who all
Yes.
won their seats. So baby steps. In the meantime, on the other side of it, we've got the suicide, we've got the stress, we've got the overwhelmness, which is just terrible. So
And
where can
also the
people
other things that
find
you're
you on
doing,
social
Dr.
media?
Lulu,
Okay, go ahead.
is accepting feedback. Like this conversation that we're having right now, you're educating me, I'm educating you, and it's about accepting feedback, keeping an open mind, and when we get it wrong, apologize and move on. Don't become defensive, because what people are doing, they're challenging the statement, they're not challenging the person, but people take it so personally. When I say my name is Laila, it's not Layla, then you just started using my name and that was it. And you went sorry and that was it. And it wasn't a big deal. Whereas other people come up to me and they said, oh, well, because I know someone or blah, 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 blah. Don't give me your excuses. I've heard them 5 million times. Just apologize and move on. Use the correct name, the correct pronoun, the correct pronunciation. That's just basic respect.
No, that's respect. I love that. So before we leave, I want you to tell us your social media handles if you have any, your website. If you want to type it, if it's going to take long, you can just say it and I'll try to write it myself. But I would like people to follow you. And if anyone on TikTok, Tammy says stress. I'm not sure. She just wrote the word stress. Tammy, could you expatiate on that? I just came and I saw the word stress. What did you mean by stress? If anyone has a question, by the way, for my guest, please ask. She's very, very well versed on at least something that you are not versed in when it comes to LGBT plus and just creating safe spaces at the workplace. This is the work that she actually does for a living. So please, can you write for me so I need your website. Oh, that was your website. Is LEM Education? Is your
Yeah,
website?
lemeducation.com.
Okay.
Um,
What
and
about
from
social
there, you
media?
can find, yes, I'm on Twitter, Instagram,
Okay.
Facebook,
As
LinkedIn.
Laila?
Yeah. It's all on my website. So if you go to
Okay, well,
lemeducation.com,
okay.
and you can book me for a consultation or have a look at the things that I do. Pride in Education is also on my website. Educating Out Racism is also on my website. So yeah, work in progress.
Yes, I love it. So lemeducation.com
Thank you.
/ consultancy work.
No, just lemeducation.com. Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah,
because then it's
yeah.
shorter. Thank you. Okay, then it's
Mm.
shorter. Okay, to everyone. Oh, and Kim got it. I love it. Kim has it on TikTok. So let me pin it on TikTok so we will have the comments there for a little while. But yeah, so pin this comment. So anyone who comes in will see it. So we have been talking to Laila from the UK. I'm just so happy that I finally get to meet you. We've been talking to each other across social media platforms, texting
Yes.
people that typing and just never met. So I just want to give you flowers. Thank you for coming. Thank you for blessing us with your knowledge. Thank you
Look, I
for
got them.
the flowers just arrived by magic. Yay! I gave her flowers and flowers just arrived by magic. But I want to say thank you for real because this is difficult work. Thank you for doing the work. This is not hard. This is not easy work. And you know what? I get big time imposter syndrome just like you do. Not because I want to do the affinity bias, but just because people don't expect it when I say that. I said, no, I'm human. I feel like, I need to do more. I'm not doing enough. I need to do something different. I need, it's non-stop. So
Dr.
thank
Lulu, you are
you.
enough. You're
Thank you.
doing fantastic. You are more than enough. You're doing
Yes.
really well, honestly. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to share the space and meet you.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, I love your energy.
virtually.
You're beautiful. You're just drop dead gorgeous. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I do plan to come to the UK this year in the fall.
Hit me
So
up.
yes, I will. Are you in London proper?
Yeah. I'm very close to the center. Very close. Yes.
Yes, we're gonna go to Angel Islington. My siblings lived in Angel, so I'm gonna go back there just for old time's sake. And Kim says she's beautiful. Kim says you're beautiful. And then Kim also says, thank you both on behalf of myself and my kids. So Kim is a mom of not one but two trans kiddos. So Kim is just a mama bear, and she will take you out. Not you, but you, whoever is out there, if you come for her kids, like all parents should. So again, we want to say big, huge, ginormous exercise. Thank you to our guest today. Y'all go find her at lemeducation.com. And if you have questions about pronouns, I went there a little bit ago because we have the class coming up next week. So why not talk about it? So January 24th, we have a free class on pronouns at pronounsclass.com. Simple. Go to pronounsclass.com, sign up, and I'll see you there. Again, I want to say a big, huge thank you to everyone who joined us at the very beginning, from Tori, who stayed till the end, to Peter, to Jenny from Oklahoma, to someone else from Minnesota, and it's been an amazing afternoon. You never know whose life you will touch, and that's why I keep doing this. So, Laila, take us out by giving us something positive, something heartwarming that we're going to take with us for the rest of the day.
Kindness is the only way forward.
I love it. That was perfectly said. No need to add any extra. Laila, namaste. I appreciate you. Thank you all so much for joining us on TikTok. Thank you for joining us everywhere else. This has been amazing. I'll see you all next week with another guest if I have one. Otherwise, I'll be by myself. Bye, y'all. Thank you so much. Bye, TikTok. Bye, Laila. Mwah, 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 mwah. All right, everyone. See y'all later. I'm gonna sign off here. Tori, thank you so much for joining us. Please share the links to the videos so that other people will learn, because this is how people learn, by becoming fearless and putting themselves out there. Thank you so much, TikTok. See y'all tonight at 10 p.m. Thank you everywhere else. See y'all next week. Bye.